Yep. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started with the breakfast. Are we online? All right, so the webinar is going on too. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jay Hippis from the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I'm the state traffic engineer and TZD co-chair along with Mike Hansen from Department of Public Safety. This is the 15th year of TZD. It's hard to believe 15 years already. Over a 40% reduction in fatalities. That is absolutely amazing. It all goes to the hard work of everybody in this room and everybody out there who has a passion for reducing fatalities and serious injuries on our roadway. In 2017, we had another, it's tough to celebrate fatalities, but I think we need to look back on 2017 and the great progress that we've made. So we wanted to have a few special guests come up today just to say a few words. So we have some leadership here from the Minnesota DOT. We have Sue Mulvihill, who is our Chief Engineer and Deputy Commissioner, and Jody Martinson, who's our Assistant Commissioner for Operations, come up and say a few words of thank you. I'd also like to invite our colleagues at the DPS, Mike Hansen, to come up, Chris Ballard from Department of Health, and Colonel Matt Langer to come up to say a few words to the group. They just want to recognize all the hard work that's been done.
Thanks, Jay. Doesn't feel like I'm on in here, but we're on out there, huh? Okay. I really want to talk loud here right now. Anyway, thank you for inviting us today. I truly want to say that I appreciate all the efforts of everybody in this room and in all the rooms across the state of Minnesota who have worked so hard on towards zero deaths in our state. I'm going to just tell a little story because Jody's going to talk a little bit about the fatalities that we've had and some of the success that you've seen. But in 1986, I went over to the MnDOT Traffic Engineering Office in St. Paul, and I was the traffic safety engineer. And I didn't know much about traffic safety at that time. I had some relatives that had gotten killed, actually, in car crashes, 2 cousins, and some other people that I knew. And I didn't know much about it, but my job was to look at highway safety and try to figure out how to reduce crashes and accidents and improve safety on the system here in Minnesota. And in 1986, when I first started looking at crash reports, we had 658, I think, fatalities in that year. And so think about where we've come from there to 358. It's still too many. We still want to get to 0, but we really have made some significant improvements in the last, unfortunately for me, 32 years. But I want to say that I'm really proud of the success that we've created with the partnership. That was first the 3 E's, engineering, enforcement, and emergency medical. And then education and environment came in as well. And now we're working on all different kinds of things to try and improve highway safety, improve driver behavior, and see that we can continue to reduce that fatality rate. One thing I just want to touch on too is that we're really involved in connected and autonomous vehicles in MnDOT. I know that many of you may have taken a look at the little autonomous shuttle bus we have up there, but one of the things that's really cool about that is that they are looking at this as the next opportunity for us transportation professionals to make some pretty significant strides in improving safety and reducing crashes and fatalities across the country, actually. It's being talked about as one of the things that will help us help people, help drivers to make themselves safer, because we all know they do things that aren't the smartest behind the wheel, and it only takes a second or even parts of a second to actually make a mistake or do something that causes you some serious trouble or someone else. So we're looking at that as an opportunity to really improve safety and help drivers do a better job on the road, and hopefully we can continue to reduce towards 0, because there is no number that's acceptable except 0. And I just want to say congratulations on all the hard work that you've done, and all the coordination, and all the great events like this, and the big TZD conference that happens. It's the work and the relationships and the collaboration of all the people like you out there in the system that help us make this happen. So thank you very much. And you going to introduce Jody, or should I?
Go ahead.
Okay, and this is Jody. Jody is our Assistant Commissioner for Operations.
Thanks, Sue. Hard to add to that. Sue captured a lot. The work you do is so very important, and I know everybody sitting in this room is so passionate about what they do. When I was a district engineer, you know, I just really leaned on our TZD coordinators because they pulled so many people together, and I just appreciated that so much. They're so dedicated, so passionate. I said it at the TZD conference. They're like our energizing bunny rabbits. They just keep going with all these ideas. And just want to encourage everyone in the room here to speak up with different ideas that you have and keep thinking of different things that we can do. When I was a district engineer, I was working with Captain Henschitz at the time, and we had just started with TZD. And we were in a meeting together, and afterwards he said, you know, he goes, I'm just really struggling. We can't get these vehicles to slow down out there anymore when there's these crashes going on. Is there anything we can do? And we started putting our heads together, and we looked to some of our safety funds, and were able to put some message boards out along I-94 between Moorhead and Alexandria to receive some special funding. And I know Christine helped with that too, because it's like we were just starting there, and to see some ideas come forward and try ways to figure it out, and you know, was instrumental in getting that funding. But just trying to help people more aware of what's going on in their surroundings. And so there it was, just, you know, it was just a little side conversation afterwards, and we're able to work together to get those things done. So again, if there's any ideas rolling around in your head, make sure and let us know, because there's different things that we can do. Everybody working together, we can put our heads together, definitely. Sue had mentioned too, the only acceptable number out there is 0, but man, we have made huge strides, and it's just so important that that number keeps going down and we get to that goal of 0, because that's the most important thing. I always say that people need to be going home at night. Everybody deserves that right to go home at night, and that's what we have to keep thinking about. Mike, were you going to mention about the Region 5, or I didn't want to steal your thunder, because that came out from you, so I didn't want to steal that.
No,
but
no.
It's really great news, but thank you so much for your hard work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. And everybody, I just, again, we're making tremendous progress in Minnesota, and it's because of the partnerships that all of us have forged out there. It's everybody working together, not only the 4 E's that make up the foundation of TZD, but it's everybody who makes those good decisions when they get behind the wheel every day. And again, a shout out to the regional coordinators. You guys are really the glue that kind of brings everything together, and have had a huge impact on traffic safety in Minnesota. Last week I participated in our quarterly conference call with the NHTSA Region 5 states, which are primarily the upper Midwest. And there was also a report released by NHTSA yesterday showing, you know, anywhere from a 5 to 7 to 10% increase for nearly every state in the country when it comes to fatal crashes. Minnesota is an outstanding exception to that. Minnesota was the only state in Region 5 to see a decrease in fatalities, and we continue on that right downward trend. Again, the only number that's acceptable is 0, and it's going to take all of us kind of doubling down and keeping our eye out for those new innovative ideas, the AV technology that's coming. Technology will save us from ourselves, as Colonel Langer has said before, but it really is a team effort, and this is just a great example of how government can and does work to serve its citizens very well. So thank you, everybody.
I don't want to follow him. That'll be impossible. So my role at the Department of Health, I manage the statewide trauma system, and we're the 4th E, so we kind of come in and try to, if somebody is in a wreck, we try to make sure that they survive that wreck. But boy, 40% reduction. I am just so proud to be part of this this initiative. It's really just a shining example, I think, of a stellar public policy initiative that just keeps going and going. So that's really all I wanted to say. I'm just you know, just humbled to be part of such an effective group.
Thanks, Chris. You know, there's a couple of things that I think about when we look at where our fatalities are today versus where they were when I started about 18 years ago, but certainly several years ago. And we've done some really good stuff that has just worked. in Minnesota. And one of those things is the cable median guardrail that I talk about. You know, when I was doing reconstruction full time, the through the median fatal crash in the metro area was a very common occurrence. It happened so often that we had special data sheets that we submitted every time we reconstructed one of those crashes. And I've been on the scene of quadruple and greater fatalities where it was just through the median and bam, head on with multiple fatalities. It was a very common occurrence. And, you know, it's not that we've solved that problem in Minnesota, but if you look around, that type of crash in the metropolitan area isn't that big of an issue anymore. Numerically. And then when you look at how that's expanded to greater Minnesota, there's lives, regrettably, that would be alive today. There's people that would be here today if that technology would have been everywhere all the time. So that's just something that has really worked well. The other thing that's exciting for me is from the educational standpoint. We've really pulled together, and this requires all of the E's to talk about what we're doing. It usually starts with enforcement, being on the scene of a crash, and then recognizing that there's a story to be told, and then the victim families agree, and we talk about it from the EMS, the engineering, educational perspective. It's really been powerful. And one of those for me that just always rings in my head is the Life Without Lindsay story from almost the middle of nowhere, but southwest Minnesota. Young mother going out for a bike ride, takes her 2 kids with, and she ends up being killed by a distracted driver who was not texting but was distracted by a cell phone. And the great story there is everybody was willing to come forward and tell their story about what happened. So fast forward, very powerful video put out on YouTube, fast forward about 18 months or 2 years, and I'm sitting with BJ Dixit in the NPR studio doing just a call-in show on distracted driving. And the very last caller, is, you know, shivers went down my spine because this young mother in Minneapolis, not anywhere close to Laverne, said, you know, I saw this story on YouTube, and she had the facts all wrong. You know, it was completely incorrect. But she said, I got to tell you, after listening to that story and hearing what happened to that young mom, I don't text and drive anymore, and I used to all the time. And it was as if Andrea Bovey was sitting right next to me saying, see, I'm no longer here, but I'm still here making a difference. And I think some of those things have collaborated and grown as part of TZD, where we're able to tell these really powerful stories. And in my heart, I know that it's making a difference. And sometimes you just have that direct proof where there's one person that says, I saw that video and changed my behavior, or I got cited for no seatbelt and it saved my life. You hear those one-to-ones every once in a while. But I think we just have to have faith that there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that were changing their behavior and changing their reality as a result of those really powerful stories that lead us from double or more the number of fatalities to where we are today. So I'm really excited about the future and where we're going as we continue to capitalize on these stories that are making a difference. So thanks to everybody who has a role in doing your job every day, but also figuring out how we can tell these powerful stories.
Great. Thank you to our leadership who came today, took time out of your schedules. I know it means a lot for everybody here to have you come. So thank you very much, and we'll dive into the program. So we have a very exciting program today. Super Bowl 52 is right around the corner. Over 1 million people will be visiting the cities. A lot of people from the East Coast, so we'll have some East Coast drivers venturing to the Twin Cities here pretty soon. So we have a very exciting program talking about some of the safety challenges that are associated with how to plan and operate our system for a freeway. So we have 4 speakers today. We have Wendy Lynch from HCMC, Colonel Matt Langer will give the Minnesota State Patrol's perspective, John Schuveller from the Mall of America, and Brian Carey from MnDOT Freeway Operations. So we're going to save a little bit of time on the bios. They're on the back of the agenda, and they should be on the screen for those viewing via the webinar. And also, if you have a comment, if you're online, type it in the chat box, and we'll do comments towards the end. And I'm going to put a little plug in now for make sure you do the survey at the end too, and I'll put a plug in at the end too. That really gives us some really great feedback on how the program is working out. So with that, we will start with Wendy.
So Hennepin EMS, we are the primary EMS agency for Super Bowl 52. Everything seems to be coming downtown, and I think I've spent the better part of 18 months on the core planning team with Minneapolis Police planning for Super Bowl 52. and everything about it. For EMS, we have a few concerns moving into Super Bowl 52. Obviously, the freeway system is one, keeping the freeway open, our rigs picking up patients, making it kind of quick. We work with State Patrol, we work with Minneapolis Fire, actually we work with Hennepin Sheriff as well, ensuring that our trucks are there, get the patients, put them in the back of the rig, and transport them quickly. We also do, at Hennepin EMS in our communication center, we have what's called West Medical Resource Control Center, West MRCC. What West MRCC does is it's able to communicate with the EMS agencies in the metro, regional, and statewide. So we can tell them when traffic is congested on the freeways, give them the opportunity of which hospital to transport to. And those are some of the things that we're addressing with Super Bowl 52. When I think about Super Bowl 52, HCMC is a level 1 trauma center. We're expecting, since we're at ground zero, our EMS garage is right across the street from US Bank Stadium, which is kind of unique. The outer perimeter comes right up to our garage. Hennepin EMS, our operations are moving out of our garage for the 10-day period. We're actually moving up to LifeLink 3 in Northeast Minneapolis. So never been done before, moving your operations in the middle of a very busy time. So we're moving up there, and instead of attacking from inside out with our deployment, we're actually attacking it from the outside in. There's portions of downtown that we just can't get to by our garage. So we are moving our deployment plan around, moving our trucks to a lot of the Minneapolis fire stations so that we can still continue our responses and meet those needs. We're bringing in mutual aid agencies to address it, just so that we can keep everybody moving in the city. Also, HCMC has had to address the fact that perhaps there will be times when we have to close just because of traffic congestion downtown. We are at ground zero on game day. Everybody that's at the tailgate party at the convention center, they're going to have like 60 articulating buses in the back loading dock, and all those participants that paid $5,000 plus to go to the tailgate party and to the Super Bowl will all be traveling to US Bank Stadium, and all of that goes by the hospital and by our garage, and then also returns. So those are some of the mitigating factors, and if anybody's aware of downtown, when you come in off of 94, all those buses are going to park on the north side of 7th Street. So it doesn't matter how you look at it, there's only so many lanes of road. And when you're using up 2 just to park buses, it only leaves 3 other lanes, and one of those is hooded meters. So that's a lot of traffic that's moving downtown. So we have some unique challenges for EMS downtown specifically. Nicollet Mall, if anybody's aware, that's from 6th Street to 12th Street. That's all the Super Bowl live. That's activated. Some of those cross streets are closed. Some of them are already closed. So we're already facing those traffic congestion downtown. The other thing that Hennepin EMS is addressing is detox. So if anybody's aware of HCMC, we're the only hospital that has a special care unit that addresses for inebriated individuals. But it's clear that not all these inebriated people are patients. They're not patients, they're just drunk. So trying to keep them off the road. We've worked closely with Minneapolis Police. On a day-to-day basis, we're transporting patients, I shouldn't say patients, but people to special care. Some of them are patients, but we transport them to HCMC. But now with 1.5 million more people in our metropolitan area, and with bars open until 4 a.m. downtown, that presents some unique challenges. Also on limited budgets, and the fact that we really haven't spent a lot of time building our detox facilities. So we're working with the hospital compact groups in managing moving those patients around the city. Instead of a 72-hour care, which is usually what they get to sober up, they're looking at just sobering stations so that as soon as they are sober, they're on their way. But realistically, we're trying to address the fact that we want to get those people not on the road. If we can have them with somebody that's a trusted individual that has not been drinking, that would be ideal. but still that's something that we still have to face the fact that we have to do something with these people. So we have some mitigating things that we're doing with that. We're working with Ramsey County, Hennepin County, and trying to figure out how to move those patients around, or people I should say. So those are just a few of the things that Hennepin EMS is addressing when we're looking at Super Bowl. It's going to be busy. We've none of our personnel have time off, so we have everybody boots on the ground. We generally run with about 26 trucks during the day. We're looking at putting on 35 trucks on a day, plus using mutual aid. So we are trying to address, like I said, those response times and making sure that we can get people safely off the road. Thank you.
This one's good? All right. So we have kind of a unique role when it comes to the Super Bowl. Our planning started a couple of years ago from the law enforcement side, and we keep being told what an opportunity it is to be part of the planning for the Super Bowl, and I'm not so sure that it's been that great of an opportunity yet, but it is a once-in-a-career event for us in Minnesota. I don't think that they'll be back here anytime soon like they will be in Miami or New Orleans or other places, but it's been really unique to work with all the other law enforcement agencies and to see how we shine in Minnesota by working together with law enforcement, and that's not the case across the country in every place as good as it is here. But in terms of what the State Patrol is doing, we're bracing for this event in the Metro, but we're also looking at it from a statewide perspective that the 4 a.m. bar close that Wendy mentioned is available statewide for the weekend at least, and then for sure it'll be happening in Minneapolis. That's up to whether the local jurisdiction approves it or not, and unfortunately I don't have good numbers or data to say where that's happening and where it's not, but safe to say that we recognize that the football game, the Super Bowl, and that weekend is going to be a big party scene, and there's going to be a lot of drinking. And so one of our challenges is how do we mitigate the effects of all those people drinking in greater Minnesota, having a great time like they would for Super Bowl Sunday, maybe less of a great time now that the Vikings aren't going to be in it, but still having a great time. And then also recognizing that in the metro area with 1 million or more people coming in, what's that going to do to the bar scene in the metro, and what's that going to have from a traffic safety impact with just impaired drivers. So we've got a big emphasis on impaired driving. I'm talking about it again with our agency message that goes out, really kind of trying to hype the vigilance of out there making a difference when it comes to impaired driving. We'll have a lot more troopers on the road. We've pretty much canceled days off for the weekend, for the 10-day period in the metropolitan area, so we'll have a ton of people working. But from an interesting perspective, and I think Wendy and others share this challenge, our traffic safety challenge is this weekend and the weekend after the Super Bowl too. So when we put everybody on for the 10-day operational period, we're also keeping our eye on what happens when everybody then has time off after the Super Bowl. So that's been one of our challenges. It's just not this period of time, it's all the time. So in greater Minnesota, we have additional staffing. There's been overtime funds through the Office of Traffic Safety released for impaired driving like we normally do to keep our eye on that 4 a.m. bar close, because our traditional staffing in almost every area has troopers going home at 2 a.m. and with bars potentially closing at 4, we don't want to be going home at 2, so we're doing the best we can to extend that operational period and keep our eye on that. In the metropolitan area, we've got a lot of staffing, a lot more than we normally would, and a different deployment model to keep troopers out and about. With an additional 1 million people coming in, one of our challenges from a traffic safety perspective is keeping traffic moving. And that's something that's first and foremost on our mind, because if traffic's moving, it's safer than if it's stop and go, or the accordion issues, or impaired drivers and distracted drivers, or unfamiliar drivers, or East Coast drivers not understanding how things go in Minnesota for how to drive. But we're not exactly sure, and I wish I had good data to show of these 1 million people coming in. I don't know how many of them are renting cars. I think with Lyft and Uber and the emphasis for public transportation, specifically light rail to get to and from game day, will probably reduce some of the issues on our roads, but we're kind of curious what that's going to look like. And then we're looking at specific targeted issues like the Mystic Lake venue, the Club Nomadic now, whatever they're calling it now, but that's changed a little bit, and so we're kind of paying attention to things like that to say, what's that going to look like with the number of people that will be transporting themselves or getting to Mystic Lake for that event, and then how do they get back, and what kind of shape are they going to be in for us, both from a dangerous driving perspective, but then from an efficiency perspective, again, that we don't want to be watching the ramp, you know, on 169 backing up all the way through the right lane and causing traffic problems there. So that's been kind of interesting for us to sort of try to anticipate what it might look like, but really have no idea. And then we've got weather issues too that we're trying to watch when it comes to roadways. So we've been working with MnDOT, and MnDOT's plugged in. You'll hear from Brian about that, both at the MAC, the Multi-Agency Command Center, the RTMC, really paying attention to if we get winter weather, what does that do for this transportation system, and how do we put our best foot forward to get people to and from where they want to be. We're also really paying attention to efficiency more so than we usually do, encouraging troopers to tow those stalled vehicles right away at the 2-hour mark to get them off the system, because we think that'll help, again, to keep traffic moving and allow the system to operate at the most capacity possible. From a sort of not traffic safety perspective, we have a big role with the mobile field force too. So we have 30 troopers that are going to be assigned excuse me, to the Metro for the 10-day period, and they're partnering with other agencies to be part of about 100-member mobile field force team. They'll go anywhere where they're needed for civil disturbance related issues. They're going to work in 2 different shifts, but kind of unique for us is those troopers are going to be working the road when they're not being used for mobile field force. So we're not just like holding them up in a conference room waiting for the call. We're going to have them out and about, doubled up from Greater Minnesota, working in the Metro to have some additional presence in addition to what we're doing in the metropolitan area. You know, one of our concerns from a civil disobedience perspective that ties into traffic safety is if there's interest for protest groups to get on the freeway. That's probably my biggest anxiety, you know, if that is something that happens on game day, and how we handle that, because we recognize, number one, it's incredibly hard to predict whether that's going to happen. Number two, it's almost impossible to prevent it if that's the will of several hundred people to do that. And then number three, it takes a long time to get them off the freeway safely and to hold people accountable as appropriate. So that's one of our challenges that we're keeping our eye on and really watching closely for game day specifically, if that's an interest. And we're tracking things like the team hotels and how team buses get from point A to point B. Every Fortune 500 person coming into the Metro believes they need a police escort to get around. And so we've really worked hard to say, you know, congratulations on your success, but we don't do that for you. Kind of just interesting pieces. Disney World called, and for the player of the game that goes to Disney World, they asked for a police escort to get that player from US Bank Stadium to the airport, because apparently they actually do go to Disney World right after the game. And so we've done, you know, Minnesota's different than other places. We just don't do that. And so we've tried to be really diligent in saying, you know, we're not going to provide that service, because we don't want our troopers tied up on something like that and drawing that resource away from our primary mission. And it, in our opinion, just isn't an appropriate use of lights and siren to do that kind of stuff. So on limited basis, we're doing some of that work, particularly with VIP stuff, whether it's from a Secret Service perspective or the U.S. State Department, visiting governors. Like the Pennsylvania governor will obviously be in town to cheer on their team. So we're working on some of those issues as well. Aviation, we've got a helicopter in our fixed wing. Our chief pilot is involved with coordinating the aviation resources that are coming in. A lot of federal assets in town, so we're working those angles. We've got a public information officer that'll be in the Joint Incident, or I'm sorry, the JIC, the Joint Information Center. We'll be in the Multi-Agency Command Center, and then the State EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, will be partially activated. So we've got resources in those places too, again, because it's a partnership between St. Paul PD, Minneapolis PD, Hennepin County as the big agencies, but then all of the other agencies that are cooperatively working together on this. None of us have the resources to even possibly be successful on our own. on a day-to-day basis, but certainly during this event. So we're pulling those things together and working hand in hand to see how we get through this event safely. And then kind of an interest for us is the airport PD chief reached out and he said, geez, we're kind of concerned about late Sunday night and then into Monday, because everyone that comes is likely to want to get out of here right after the game. So we're looking at Monday being just unprecedented traffic through the airport to get out of here, which is a totally different dilemma than game day or the security operations for the 10-day operational period. So we're working really closely with the airport to figure out how we do that well too, that we're paying specific attention to Highway 5 and 77 and 494 in that area, that we can get people to the airport, because we don't want to be faced with, well, we had a heck of a great time at the game, but those Minnesotans don't know how to drive, and I missed my flight and I was backed up. So we're really working with Airport PD to figure out how to anticipate what that might look like on Monday as people try to get out of here as fast as they can, perhaps to get home where they want to be. There'll also be additional pressure at the other regional airports too. I've heard the ops plan for the St. Paul downtown airport, and it's incredible what they're doing, closing taxiways for parking space for private jets. So it's really interesting where those traffic safety patterns might be different and how that might impact things. But our hope is to get through, for us, the operational period, I think, definitely goes through the Monday after the game from a traffic safety perspective to get people home and safe and back to business as normal. So we've got a lot of resources on the table statewide, specifically in the metro, but I think we have a good plan in place. And as I've been saying to our group, we've got a great plan in place, and step one in the plan is to go to plan B, because we've been through this enough that we recognize that no matter what degree of planning we do, and it's all valuable, we've got to be nimble and realize that we're probably going to shift in a different direction as soon as we get into this thing and recognize what it looks like. From a big picture perspective, I've really been saying this is our opportunity to show how we do our job, and we're on the world stage, really. One incident could be national news, whether it's the, you know, whatever, the turkey semi rollover somewhere that creates the scene that people recognize. And so we're doing our best to really put our best foot forward and to show the world what Minnesota is made of, and specifically what law enforcement is made of in Minnesota, and with what I have ownership of, what the State Patrol is made of. So we're looking forward to it, and you know, I'm kind of curious to see how it goes and excited to see our people mobilize on what they've been talking about for the last couple of years. So that's kind of an overview of where we're at from a traffic safety perspective, but we're ready. If it started tomorrow, that would be great for us. We want to go and get it going, and then we're in that phase. And I remember this for the Republican National Convention. Everything was, we'll do that after the RNC. We'll do that, and now it's like, we'll do that after the Super Bowl. So kind of looking forward to getting to the after Super Bowl piece, but then also recognizing that, you know, every moment is critical as we lead up to the big game. All right, questions at the end?
Let's welcome up John from the Mall of America.
Morning. Thanks for having me here, everybody. I'm John Schuveller. I'm the maintenance manager at Mall of America. So an exciting time for all of us, obviously. Like it was stated, the spotlight's on Minnesota. Spotlight's going to be on Mall of America for quite a bit of the Super Bowl. And this one, Super Bowl this year, from what I understand, is a little different than it's been in other states and cities that it's been in. All of the media attention, every media outlet that's involved in the Super Bowl is going to be at Mall of America, as opposed to other Super Bowls. It's usually within a close proximity to the stadium. Some of the challenge traffic-wise, obviously, State Patrol and some of the smaller entities are going to have to deal with that, the cities and the counties, getting everybody from the mall to the stadium and back safely. As far as traffic goes at the Mall of America, we're expecting traffic to be similar to what we have in the holidays. To give everybody an idea of how this works, 40 million visitors plus every year at Mall of America. That's a lot of people coming in and out. On a daily basis, that's an average of 109,000 people a day. Traffic is not new to us. Compared to the state and the cities, it's a very small area to have 109,000 people a day. Holidays, Black Friday, 270,000 people in one day. It's over 60,000 cars. Any given weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, 45,000 plus cars a day. We're used to 20,000 a day on a slow day, which is Monday, Tuesday. A day like today, it's not going to be uncommon to see 20,000 plus cars. Today would be considered a slow day in my mind. Still a lot of cars coming in. Traffic for Super Bowl, they're going to change some things at the Mall of America. We deal with traffic, like I say, every day coming in and out of the Mall of America. If you can see the site plan, do they have this on webinar too? To the east of the main mall property is a large lot here, simply called the East Lot. During Super Bowl, that's going to house over 300 buses. Those buses are there simply to get media from the mall to the stadium. We've worked with the City of Bloomington quite a bit with their traffic management planner. We've got a lot of wayfinding around the mall that went in last year, digital signage that can be changed as needed to direct traffic. Any traffic in and out of this lot will be directed directly east to try and keep it away from the main mall, to keep it so that guests can come in, cars can get in and out and not clutter it up any more than it already is. Traffic management systems will change as they see traffic change. Bloomington City Traffic Control works with the Mall of America Traffic Control quite a bit. They communicate back and forth if they see traffic changing. If a parking lot gets full and we need to move them to the other side of the property, all that wayfinding changes coming into the property, tells the guest to go to another area to come into the property. On property with the parking ramps and the surface lots at each anchor store, which would be outside of Macy's, Nordstrom, Sears, and LL Bean down on the southeast, we have over 12,000 parking spaces on site. That does not include the outer lots. Keeping all that managed is going to be a little different during Super Bowl. We're going to have some security checkpoints in place, so traveling around the main building is going to be detoured a little bit. I don't expect that we'll have a problem with that. We've got a lot of people out there directing traffic. We've got a lot of officers, extra staff coming on site. Super Bowl has provided a lot of security to help out with that. I think we'll be okay there. We hope it's not going to snow that week because that'll make it challenging to push snow if we've got security checkpoints everywhere. I feel like I'm missing something. I'm winging this, folks. So, on the north side of the property, on the north side of Lindau Lane up there, substantial portions of those parking lots will be closed off for media attention, satellite trucks, players, everybody coming in and out. We've got to give them special access to get in. They've got to be close to the building, so like satellite trucks can have their cabling and communication wired in. All of the media in the mall will be in the north half of the building in our new section on the food court. Not sure the number off the top of my head, but I've been told anywhere 3,000 to 5,000 media people up there all week long doing interviews. NBC, CBS, Sirius Radio, all the major networks involved, NFL Network, they're all going to be there all week long. It's going to be really busy. We're pretty excited to see this happen. A little nervous too because we want to make sure the spotlight's on Minnesota, it's on the mall. As the State Patrol mentioned, everybody's watching us for this one, so we want to make sure everything goes out without a hitch. We have 45 guys that work in my department in maintenance that constantly are roaming the property, keeping everything safe for guests to come in. We've got several pieces of equipment, trucks, tractors, front-end loaders, salters, snow blowers, you name it, the typical snow equipment you see everywhere else, and those guys are constantly roaming the property. They're trying to keep it clear of snow, ice, anything that might be unsafe. Keep traffic in, keep pedestrian traffic flowing. We don't want people slipping and falling. We don't want accidents on property. It causes big problems for everybody. We also have an outside contractor that helps us with large snowfalls, such as the one we just had. That contractor comes on site during the day to help us out a little bit, and at night he comes on site and they do a full clear of the property. They are able to clear every parking lot around the Mall of America, the surface lots, the top of the parking ramps, usually in one night depending on the snowfall. This last snowfall was a big one. They cleared everything last night. They'll be there the next few nights, constantly just tuning up and cleaning everything. They come in with, just to give some numbers, about 17 to 20 dump trucks. They come in with pickup trucks, about 10 of those. They come in with skid loaders and front end loaders. And when I go in the middle of the night and everything's lit up and they're cleaning snow, I kind of joke with people, it's like watching the National Guard roll in. These guys are moving snow and they're moving it fast. It's quite a team of guys that come in and get that done. They work side by side with our own maintenance staff to get that done and keep it clear. Because the goal is, come opening morning, we want that property clear. We want traffic coming in. We want traffic flowing back out. We want them to do it safely, no accidents. Every time it snows, we probably use between 10 and 15 tons of salt on the property, just trying to keep the ice control down. States, cities, and counties are very familiar with what it takes to keep ice off the roads. It's not an easy task, because when you get traffic driving on it while you're trying to clear it, it's packing down, and once it's packed, it's just about impossible to get up. So we work diligently at night after night when traffic goes down to try and clean that up every night and keep everything flowing for the morning. I really don't know where else to go. I hope I'm close to my 9 minutes.
Thank you, John. And our last speaker is Brian Carey from MnDOT.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, thanks for having me here today. I was going to talk a little bit about MnDOT's perspective and what we've been doing as part of that. Is everything good to go? Okay. There we go. Find the right button. All right, I'll start off with a little bit of background on what I do normally. I work in our Regional Transportation Management Center. I'm the director of the freeway operations side of the center. We've also got maintenance dispatch, state patrol dispatch, and signal operations in that facility as well. And so I kind of bring this up a little bit because I'll talk a little bit about the RTMC and how we're going to be, you know, a big part of MnDOT operations here in the Metro as part of Super Bowl. So a little bit of background. I think everybody knows that there's the Super Bowl championship game, and there's also a lot of other events that we've been kind of monitoring as well, so that we know where we want to concentrate our resources on and get a sense as to where traffic's going to go. There's certainly a lot going on downtown. Super Bowl Experience, Super Bowl Live, some of the other presenters have talked about, and NFL's tailgate at the convention center the day of the game. But there's a lot of other venues that we've been kind of monitoring as well, trying to get a sense of what kind of traffic volumes we'd expect at these other venues. There's Nomadic Live at the Armory. There's media events going on at Xcel Energy Center, which will be on Monday. There's Winter Carnival events going on. There's Mystic Lake, which now has gotten downgraded a little bit from what they were originally expecting with Club Nomadic, but still going to have a lot of big concerts down there and still going to generate a lot of traffic down in that area. One of the things we've been working on with Scott County for actually the last couple of years, even kind of before Super Bowl conversations were happening, is, there's a lot of concerts down at Mystic and a lot of things going on at Canterbury Park. And so we've had a lot of instances where traffic backs up from Canterbury Road onto 169. And so we've been working with them on a traffic management plan and getting signs on the freeway as well as signs on the local system to kind of direct traffic around different routes. Because everybody who goes down to Mystic or goes in on Canterbury, they all kind of know that one exit off of 169. And so trying to encourage people to use some of those alternate exits. And so we're actually getting a couple of signs installed on 169, luckily just like in the nick of time here. And it's been a mutual project with Scott County where we have a sign on northbound 169 around Highway 41. And we've got a sign southbound 169 at Pioneer Trail where we can tell people to start detouring should we start seeing some issues down there around Mystic Lake for the Super Bowl. The northbound sign is activated. The southbound one they're still working on, so they got just about one more week here, but they said they'll have it done and have it ready to go in time for some of these events that start up. So we've been involved with the planning process here for over the last year or so, and these are just some of the different communities and groups that we've been, or committees rather, and groups that we've been a part of. There's wayfinding committees, transportation committees. Obviously, a big one in Minnesota is the Snow and Ice Committee. A lot of concerns and questions about what is MnDOT prepared to do for managing snow and ice conditions, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing. Our communications group has been a part of it, working with the folks that are establishing the JIC, the Joint Information Center, We've got folks in our emergency management office, folks in our commercial vehicle inspections office helping State Patrol with inspecting some of the freight vehicles that are taking goods to the actual stadium, as well as inspecting limousines and such. We have our aeronautics office, which has been working with a lot of the different regional airports and with the MAC. The airports themselves are kind of taking the lead, but the aeronautics office gets involved. They're talking like not only the MAC is going to obviously have a lot of traffic, but pretty much every regional airport in the Twin Cities is going to see a lot of increased traffic with a lot of private jets coming in. They're talking somewhere around, I think, like 1,500 to 2,000 private jets that'll be coming in for the Super Bowl. And so they don't have enough parking at the MAC. They don't have enough parking at downtown St. Paul. So they're talking, like at Crystal Airport, Flying Cloud, Lakeville. They're even talking like St. Cloud, Mankato, Rochester, where they'll probably drop off their executives here in Minneapolis, and then the pilot will take the plane and go park it in Mankato or something like that and hang out down there for the weekend. So they're trying to figure out where they're going to park all these aircraft, and even shutting down runways and taxiways to allow for more parking space. So just kind of a staggering number of aircraft coming in. And I actually co-presented with somebody from the MAC a couple of weeks ago, and he had some interesting numbers about that Monday after. He said, excuse me, normally on like an MEA weekend, which is one of their busier weekends, they'll see something like 45,000 trips leaving out of there, 45,000 people rather. They're expecting that to increase closer to about 70,000. So he was comparing that in size of TCF Bank Stadium to US Bank Stadium. So that's a very, very big increase for them, and expecting a lot of increased traffic in that area, and certainly on Highway 5. They were talking about having a couple of tow trucks on scene there, because one of the things that they learned from some of the past cities that have hosted Super Bowls at the airport there, that they've had people that are late for their flight, and they'll just abandon their rental car right in front of the terminal. And so they want to have tow trucks on the ready so that they can yank them out of there as quickly as possible. It froze up on me here. There we go. One of the concerns has been road construction during Super Bowl 52. Fortunately, it's that time of year where there's not a whole lot of road construction out there, but we do have a big project going on right now on 35W between downtown and crosstown. It started last August, and it does have the Franklin Avenue Bridge, which has some restrictions there, but we were fortunately able to take advantage of some of the warmer temperatures that happened in the last week, and they were a little bit ahead of schedule on some of the bridge work, and they were able to get one of the lanes that had been restricted in that area back open again, just in time for the Super Bowl, and that's on that northbound 35W stretch into downtown. It's a 3-lane section there at the Franklin Bridge, but it was down to 2 lanes for the last several months. So it was good that we were able to get that back open, and that'll help accommodate some of the traffic coming into downtown, especially those in the Min-Pass lane, because it was forcing the Min-Pass lane to close early, which really hinders the transit operations, and a lot of dependency on transit during this event will certainly be needed. Might need a new battery or something in this. Here we go. So in terms of multi-agency communications and coordination, we are going to be obviously having our RTMC dispatch fully staffed. State Patrol and maintenance are already 24/7. My group on freeway operations, we're extending our hours of operations later into the night. Normally we'd leave by 10. We're going until like midnight or even later if need be. Bringing more people in on the weekends, certainly. I'm going to have more first trucks on during the weekends. Typically, we'll only have one first truck. That's the highway helper, or the yellow trucks that are out there that assist motorists out on the highway. We're going to take that, instead of having just one on the weekends, we're going to raise that up to 6. So that we can assist with any stranded vehicles that are out there, any crashes that occur. If there's any kind of major incident, we can assist State Patrol with doing that initial closure of the roadway if need be. But then we are also going to have maintenance crews on duty as well that can then come in and replace the first drivers as needed for those longer term events. We'll have staff at the MAC, we'll have staff at the SDOC, the Joint Operations Center, which is actually in US Bank Stadium. We have staff there for every home Vikings game, so we're going to have a staff person in the stadium during the Super Bowl. It's down in a concrete bunker. It's nowhere near the 50-yard line, so don't get too jealous about that. The JIC will have, we don't have staff there, but we'll have definitely daily interaction with them to try to get any messages that we need to relay to the public and to the media through the JIC. So some of our tentative staffing plans, I kind of alluded a little bit to metro maintenance. Certainly if it's snow and ice, we're going to be fully staffed 24/7. We have been working with the employees in the union in terms of limiting vacations during that time so that we can make sure that we've got every truck on the road that we can. They're working their mechanics on overtime to make sure we've got about 100% of the fleet operational at that time. We've got roughly, I think, 220 or so snowplows in the metropolitan area, and they're looking to try to borrow maybe another 15 or 20 from some of the other districts to bring them into the metro, so we've got enough equipment. They're also looking at some of their secondary plow drivers that work in maybe other offices besides maintenance, of activating them as well, so that we can make sure that we've got every plow on the road should there be a snow event. So far the forecast is looking pretty good through the middle of next week. We don't quite have that extended forecast to get into the Super Bowl weekend, but hopefully it'll stay good and not be like a repeat of Monday. If there's no snow, we're actually looking at having 20 staff people on duty at 5 of our major truck stations within the metropolitan area, within kind of the core area. We'll have basically 4 people at each of those 5 stations to be able to respond to anything, whether it's protesters who decide to go onto the freeway, a major crash, debris calls, whatever is needed. Those folks will be on duty and ready to respond right away. Kind of mentioned some of the increased staffing for dispatch. Our communications folks will also be on duty to make sure that they can respond to any media inquiries, and our emergency management folks will be staffing the Joint Emergency Operations Center. So with that, I think, oh, I did have one more slide for Jay's benefit. That's right, I threw this in here. So this is not so much for Super Bowl operations directly, but it is definitely going to be something highlighted during the Super Bowl. So I hope I'm not stealing your thunder from like some closing remarks, so you can use my slide here. But we're testing an autonomous shuttle bus at MnDOT's Minroad facility. The vehicle has been here basically testing since December, right, or kind of even late November. And so the idea is to bring it down during this first weekend here of the Super Bowl events, and you can get free rides to the public here on the 26th, 27th, and 28th from 11 to 4 Nicollet Mall between 3rd and 4th Street. So it'll be a good way to kind of introduce the general public to this, new and emerging technology. And I think if you haven't checked it out already, it might be something worth checking out, as well as all the other Super Bowl activity. So with that, I think I'm going to go see if we can find more batteries here or something. But I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Brian. And thanks for the plug about the shuttle, too. It's a unique experience if you haven't been inside one of those. We have some time for questions. Do we have any questions in the room? I know there's got to be some questions. These are 4 fantastic presentations.
Just raise your hand and I'll come over.
happened to be in a MnDOT work zone that had rebar and other things available to protesters. One of the advantages was, and St. Paul PD and us worked together to push the satellite toilet closer to where all the cops were. It was at the work zone, because these are the things that you just learn from experience, that people are going to have to go use the bathroom, you know, and you don't always think about those really obvious things until you're there and recognize the problem. And so the previous events that we've been through that are similar to this, I go almost back to like Y2K was one of them, where everybody, there was paranoia about what was going to happen. Every trooper was working, and it ended up without any issues, but we made an incredible number of impaired driving arrests that night. Just an incredible number. And then certainly the RNC in our history in Minnesota was one where law enforcement were kind of doing what we did then again, even though it's, years later, 8 years later, 9 years later. So those types of events. But in Minnesota, if there's any good that comes out of some of the previous protest events, it's the practice drills for law enforcement working together. And it's gone really well, and we couldn't have done it ourselves without the help from other agencies. So the same core group of people come together all the time, and hey, how you doing? And they're on to the next event because they work so well collaboratively, so it's been good.
I guess to answer that same question from a MnDOT perspective, I'd say certainly the RNC. I think that's always the one that pops into people's mind. But I even think back of like even just a few months ago, there was a Thursday night Vikings home game. It was actually a preseason game, but still, having everybody showing up at the same time right at the tail end of rush hour. There was also a Twins game that night, and a Gopher football game, and the state fair, and kids going back to school at the University of Minnesota. So, and that was stacked over rush hour. So I think those type of events that we kind of deal with on a regular basis are certainly things that we gear up from, and we learn from those experiences so that we can handle a major event like this.
I think from the EMS perspective, certainly the RNC, we learned a lot, especially since that was close to United Hospital in St. Joe's, so there were some special considerations for that. And then our agency has worked with Houston Fire Department, just learning how they handled Super Bowl from last year. So kind of going back to the previous Super Bowls, we've looked at Santa Clara. I think the closest one that we came up with was the one that was in, I believe it was Indiana. So we did kind of look at, not Indiana, I forget, somewhere in the Midwest. Anyways, so we have looked at previous Super Bowls, and this year we work closely with Houston Fire Department. Obviously they have a bigger area that they have, but just learned the trends of EMS and how they handle those patients.
And John's got a few thoughts here on Mall of America.
From Mall of America standpoint, anything we've prepared for, really this is kind of every day for us. It sounds kind of common for us. We have stars coming in, we have big events all the time. Honestly, as far as traffic goes and the amount of people coming in every year at holiday season, like I say, 275,000 people at Black Friday. This isn't uncommon for us, so we're just going to do it like we always do it and do the best we can, keep it going.
Just wondering how far in advance the corridor is being put out, the cordon. I know there's stuff going on at St. Paul at XL Center. I mean, are we talking a week in advance that's going out, or just a couple days?
Somebody from the City of Minneapolis Public Works could probably answer that better, but I'll give it a shot here. I know some of the roads were closed even in early January around the stadium. I think starting Monday, you're going to start seeing things getting more and more restricted. I think the full perimeter gets set up like probably Friday night after rush hour by like 6 o'clock, and then pretty much running through that whole weekend, the Super Bowl weekend. But there is the Super Bowl host committee's website, mnsuperbowl.com, and then /transportation. They've got some great maps on that website that show where all the closures are and the dates that they'll be closed.
I was just going to say, I know this is a joyful event, but in case of mass casualties, unfortunately, are we prepared for that as far as setting up areas in case things happen? I mean, it's hard to prepare for all parts of that, but we've been pretty lucky in our country so far with any type of terrorist attacks, but this will be the biggest event coming up, and certainly an opportunity for those who take advantage of that.
Make it easy. That is something that we have planned for. I don't even know how many FEMA exercises I've been through in 2017 and even this past month, addressing complex coordinated attacks, and I think that's the new way of saying it, active assailants. For mass casualty incidents for Hennepin EMS, from our perspective, we drill every day for major incidents. We already set up ICS structure on every fire that we go to, water emergency, hazmat. So are we prepared? Yes, we are prepared as much as we can be. Can we predict everything? No, we can't. We have set up some factors for EMS. We have a couple of Minnesota ambulance strike teams. A strike team comes 5 ambulances and a command vehicle. They're positioned right off of Vandalia and 280. So we'll have those available to us if we do need surge. And then we take it very seriously, obviously, and we do work with law enforcement very closely on getting an ingress and an egress out of any casualty incident and placing those close to where they are. So we do plan for it, and obviously there's a lot of creativity lately on these type of situations, so we do plan for it.
Anything else online?
No other questions so far online.
All right. Anything else in the room today? I want to thank all of our 4 speakers again, Wendy and Matt and Brian and John. So great presentations. You will be receiving an email with an online survey. Just a reminder, please take that survey. It really helps us make improvements and plan the next event. Our next breakfast is Wednesday, July 11th. So please mark that on your calendars. And then I'd like to encourage everybody to interact on social media with TZD and follow Minnesota TZD on Twitter and like us on Facebook. A few other notes. The 2018 conference is Tuesday, October 23rd and 24th at the Verizon Center in Mankato. So we're heading to southern Minnesota. Please mark your calendars for that. Thank you for the Minnesota Safety Council for hosting us today. Thank you for all of you who've been in attendance and all those who are joining us again online. And looking forward to the next event. Linda, you have one more thing?
The new logo.
Oh, yes, we do have a new TZD logo.
She doesn't have
It's, okay. The handout with the logo. Oh, yes, yep. We have a new TZD logo for the 15th year anniversary, so use that new logo wherever you can. So thank you again for everybody for coming today.